Welcome to our next episode of Sandy Wars. Today we have a very topical subject to discuss. The recent announcements by both India and China government level about the supposed agreements which have been reached, which have supposedly led to or is supposedly about to lead to a de-escalation as well as disengagement along the India and China line of actual control in both Ladakh and Arunachal Pradesh. And we have been told that the implication is, in fact, it has been stated in so many words, that we will resume patrolling as we were patrolling before. Our veteran panel on this, with whom we have had the privilege of meeting and discussing on similar issues in the past. We have Major General Sudhakar Jee, who is one of the most knowledgeable speakers on this subject on both areas of Ladakh and Arunachal Pradesh. He was GOC 3 Division, which was in charge of the Depsang area from the entire subsector north SSN up to Galwan up to 2017 April. And we have Brigadier RJS Dhillon, the famous paratrooper of India of Operation Cactus fame, who has personally patrolled all those areas in Ladakh which we'll be talking about during his tenure in Ladakh Scouts. And all the PP points, PP 14, 13, 12, whatever you hear about Deung Bulge, Deung plains, he has personally on foot patrolled. We will go to General Sudhakar Jee first, because he has been, has been very active in the last few days on this subject. Sir, what are your views on what has happened in the last week or so in terms of intergovernment level agreements?
Sandeep, firstly, good evening. Thank you very much for getting me to your show after a long gap, and on a very sensitive and important issue from the national security perspective. Very briefly, I would say no doubt that this thaw is a very welcome development between India and China. No doubt. 4 years of extended standoff and such a huge buildup of troops, long-range standoff weapon systems, and heavy aerial platforms getting closer to the border, border villages getting activated, your optical fiber, remote area connectivity towards China side, infrastructure development towards India side picking up momentum. So this was actually taking us to a point of no return. And it was not giving us what either of the nations wanted. So I think it's a very welcome development, and least I would cover is about the enhanced dependency on the supply chain on any product. I'm talking about the economics perspective of the whole issue, whether that is the driving factor or the geopolitical churn in the world order today is the driving factor. Basically, it remains that both the countries have come together. They have realized that yes, this is not going to take us anywhere. Diplomacy and dialogue is the best way. And India also has been able to articulate its philosophy effectively that there is a place for diplomacy and dialogue. There is no need to go in for conflict like the way the Western alliances have gone in for a conflict, making Ukraine as a proxy against Russia, and the USA particularly is using Israel as a proxy and also a battlefield to test and carry out trials of its latest weapon systems or the existing weapon systems against Iran and other stakeholders in the Middle East. So having said that, just allow me to reflect on a couple of issues. We should be mindful of the fact that China as a nation has earned the distinction and reputation of not going in for any agreement and understanding with any country in the world without having a position of advantage or without playing its cards from a position of strength. Never in the history of China. So the start point, if that be clear, then we should all be clear that after 1962 conflict, China went back by 20 kilometers north of the McMahon line or the watershed line in the eastern sector, but it did not go back in the eastern Ladakh or the western sector. So if that be the start point, a lot of water have flown down the Shyok River towards eastern Ladakh and towards Brahmaputra to the eastern sector. Many developments have taken place. Let me take the viewers to 1993 agreement, 96 agreement, 2005, 2012 and 2013. All these protocol agreements, they were signed when the philosophy of Deng Xiaoping was at its peak. For the Chinese, it was to bide time, put your head down, keep working for socio-economic development. And it continued for good length of time until our Xi, he came as the most powerful apex leader of China in 2000. He came in 2012, but formally he assumed his portfolio in 2013. From the year 2013, that hide your brightness, cherish obscuracy of Deng Xiaoping took a backseat, and Xi started a new concept of the governance of China, the aggressive projection of power. He said, we have achieved enough of might, economic might, military might, technological prowess. Now is the time we need to assert ourselves. So these are the important milestones or the conceptual framework that one has to keep in mind before we start delving into the other issues. I have covered about the agreements. After 1993 agreement, mind you, it is only in 1993 PPTA. I'm talking about the Peace and Tranquility Agreement, Border Peace and Tranquility Agreement. For the first time between India and China, the LAC was used in the clause. The same LAC which had been junked and rejected by none other than Jawaharlal Nehru way back when Chao En-lai had come with a proposal in 60s that let's divide and consider the LAC. LAC has got a different connotation to the eastern sector, and LAC has got a different connotation to the western, the eastern Ladakh. He had said that whichever point the respective sides, the troops are deployed, that becomes the LAC effective. The foothold they have, or the authority, the ground under the boots, becomes the LAC for that particular country. And he had said that either side should move back by 20 kilometers, which was not acceptable. I'm not saying the Honorable Prime Minister, whatever decision he took, it was wrong. There was some rational logic behind it. But keep that in the background. Immediately after 93, remember that India had gone into promulgate 1994, the Parliament resolution to take back the Jammu and Kashmir, Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir, no matter what effort and how much time it takes, it is ours and we'll take it back to integrate with India. So that, as per my reading, was a turning point and a sour point between India and China relationship. Despite that, we went ahead, and the landmark agreement is 2005, which actually gave us a good opening and entry point to resolve the border issue once and for all. It is unfortunate that it took a U-turn in the year 2020, April. Now, the sore point you have raised is about the patrolling. When you talk about patrolling, and there are two terminologies being frequently used, disengagement and de-escalation. We need to understand that in the year 2013, Depsang had been occupied by the PLA. After extensive, when the premier was supposed to be coming to India, extensive negotiation, they went back from Depsang plain. Again, they have come here in the 2020. They stayed there for so long, constructed almost semi-permanent, temporary and semi-permanent structures, and going by the satellite pictures, they have demolished everything, they have burned, charred everything, they have left comparatively no telltale marks, they have gone back. Now, where have they gone back is a moot point that we need to deliberate. Okay, so why Depsang plain? We need to highlight one aspect that as far as China is concerned, there is a western highway by the name of G219, the Western Highway is about 18 kilometers to 125 kilometers from the DSDBO road, which was commissioned in the year 2019 in the India side. DSDBO is Durbuk Shok DBO, Daulat Beg Uli Road. It's a distance of 256 kilometers, started in year 2001 and took so long years. So many contractors came and went, but finally it saw the light of the day in 2019. It happened immediately after abrogation of Article 370 and 35 Alpha. And that also turned out to be the next turning point as far as the relationship between India and China were concerned. So all these things put together, China by and by also has been carrying out certain activities which were unnoticed, unreported by the media, Indian media, was in the year 1999 and 2000, when the Kargil war actually was launched by Pakistanis against India, and we had very limited troops towards the Kargil side. We carried out extensive mobilization of troops. That is the time when the troops were de-inducted from Eastern Ladakh. For our viewers, it may be very interesting to understand that at some point in time, many years back, entire Eastern Ladakh, stretching over a distance of 832 kilometers, used to have only two companies. One Jack militia company towards Dibio side and another Jack militia company towards Demchok side. From two companies, the strength of the density of the troops has gone up significantly in past several years. But when the Operation Vijay took place, we had to de-induct our troops, put them into Kargil, and you know what happened in Kargil. But during this phase, with limited or no troop presence of Indian Army in the Eastern Ladakh, it was exploited by the PLA, and they came across the perceived line of actual control into Indian territory, and they carried out incursion, constructed infrastructure development. When I say infrastructure development, they built roads, tracks, and also to some extent some communication towers also came up across the LAC. Now what is this LAC? In the year 1996, the China Study Group, they had promulgated and implemented 65 patrolling points in Eastern Ladakh. Patrolling point 1 to 65, extending from Karakoram Pass to Chumar over a distance of 832 kilometers. And whether it was accepted by China mutually between India and China or not, that I cannot comment. I take it that if China...
1996 you were saying.
96. I take it that it was mutually accepted, because if there is no mutual acceptance, then China Study Group was not doing its job correctly. Any point related to border has to be accepted by the relevant stakeholder. So I take it, presume that it is with the formal acceptance of China, these PPs were put into effect. Since then, till I would say the Operation Vijay, Kargil war, we started commencing our patrolling up to these points. During the Kargil, they had intruded towards a place called as Loop Road. It's a distance of 28 kilometers. It forms in shape of a loop, 14 kilometers either side. Comes close to the current DSDBO road in the DBO itself. Thereafter, they intruded towards the bottleneck area, across the perceived LAC or the China Study Group PP of 10, 11, 11 Alpha, 12 and 13. By and by, they have been inching forward through a process of incremental salami slicing. They built shelters to accommodate the troops very close to the perceived PPs as had been identified by the China Study Group, and our patrolling point is to go up to that point. Slowly, thus, they started sending their patrols right up to a point like Butse. Butse is a point on the DSDBO road on which there is a ITBP company earlier. Now I presume the quantum of troops has gone up. From the Butse to bottleneck is a distance of 7.5 kilometers. From the bottleneck up to PP 10, 11, 11 Alpha, 12 and 13, they range between 12 to 18 kilometers. And behind that towards China side, at a distance of 4 to 5 kilometers, is the base, the military base. So why am I stating all this is just an example. While they are all connected by tracks. It's a flat top, tabletop. It takes about 18 minutes to 30 minutes maximum to build up their troops in vehicle to a point of contact. Let's say a point of contact in bottleneck. It takes for us, there are no tracks from Butse. Our troops have to move on road. How quietly we have been developing very quietly, discreetly, that's a different issue. But there was a point in time, our troops used to take anything between 45 minutes to 1 hour, 30 minutes walking and reaching up to the point, whereas their troops, they used to reach in 18 minutes to 30 minutes, maybe max 40. So they had a time differential and advantage in their favor.
So where is it? No, sir, I just trying to clarify. Their bases were 4 to 5 kilometers behind the LAC, right? From there till which point would they reach in 20 minutes or 18 minutes?
You see, firstly, their surveillance system is very effective. Our all movements from Butse to bottleneck, they are kept under a tight surveillance and they have camera. The cameras have been placed in very high positions. So all our movements are directly watched by either satellites or by the camera, which is integrated with the surveillance network, surveillance centers, or by the drones. So they pick up the movement of our troops if they are getting onto the bottleneck. So the point question which you are asking, they would have staged forward the troops to enhance the response matrix to the LAC, so-called LAC. From so the
LAC, would take 18 minutes to reach LAC from their bases 4 kilometers.
From LAC up to say the Y junction, 18 to 45 minutes in a vehicle. This is the time.
In that case, India can also, using the same tracks, from Y junction to PP 1111 Alpha, same route, Indian troops can also reach in 18 to 40 minutes.
That is the point. You see, they have a different route. One route to come up to the bottleneck, whereas we have 5 multiple PPs. Now, there are no tracks existing on which the vehicles can move up to the PPs. These are only
the same track. The same track which China will take from LAC to Y junction, same track we also can take, right, on the way back.
So that track which China uses, it is between PP 10 and PP 11. Okay, so this track can take you to a point, but from that point to go to the PPs, you have to again foot slog.
No, I am saying the relative advantage and disadvantage. For China, they cannot arrive at Rakinala or Y junction in 18 minutes. No, they will come at a point near the LAC. Just
correct. Yes. Now you have got the point.
Our LAC, right?
They would have staged forward depending on the surveillance pickup they make about the movement of our troops in advance. They stage forward the troops movement to the perceived LAC. That is, there is a track right up to that point. Thereafter, it is a flat top. It's a flat top without any permafrost, and they have ATVs. They have got all-terrain vehicles.
General Sudhakar Jee, at this point, I would like to bring in Brigadier Dhillon. He is a man who has travelled on foot there, patrolled on foot and on mule. Sir, these areas which General Sudhakar Jee has been mentioning, you have travelled there and patrolled there.
Yeah.
Based on what he has said, we would like to know your perspective, sir.
Okay, I'll put it like this. You see, DSAN plains, it can be broadly made into 2 very distinct parts. One is the plain part and one is the hill part. The plain part is from, let's put it from Dolbeg Oldie, coming down towards the track junction post on to Dipsangla, right? This is the plain portion. And below starts the hill portion. Now from Butse, we could move without detection right till Dipsangla. Our movement would only become visible to them from Dipsangla thereafter, right? That's one part. Second part, all movement from Butse into Rakinala or Jeevanala were undetected. Can't be detected because the movement arteries are in the valleys and you got hills on the sides. So there's no way they can detect it. So this problem of differential in the movement is not that acute, right? Main thing which is there is that we have changed the equation. as the general rightly pointed out, earlier we used to have only ITPP company looking after, Daud Goldi, Track Junction, and Burse and Murgo, with headquarters in Murgo. We used to have in winters one company of the Scouts headquartered at Chungtash, and two during summers, one at Chungtash, one at Sasabangsa. Right? This was the deployment long time back. Slowly and steadily, it started getting enhanced. The enhancement started becoming acute when the road started being developed to Tawang Goldi. The road actually was in use well before the present government came into use, into power. Only thing was that a portion of the alignment of the road had to be changed, because that you had to crisscross across the Shok River a number of times, and that was not very conducive. Number two, it was bang on to the under observation from across the across the Shok River, right? And they had good observation from that side, and they were sensitive about it. That's the reason why they started developing into Galwan, right, coming up to the confluence point, and they started building up their new encampment camp, which is referred to as various things nowadays, something, right? But that's the one which is opposite our track junction post, and visible from Dolbegodi also. And from there, all their movement and all, right till Karakoram Pass itself, and down the side used to take place.
You have to come a little closer. You have to come a little closer. The voice then will be a little louder.
Okay, sorry. So the next thing that comes up is, once we started changing the alignment, they also started doing the same thing. Then a bit of pushing and shoving that normally goes on between two armies anywhere, that started taking place out there. And then things started going south. That's one part. Second part is that earlier on, mainly the border guards from the side, PLA was hardly ever there out here. We keep calling it loosely PLA, but it was never PLA out here. They were only the border guards, something like a BSF or ITBP or something like that, right? PLA came into picture after the abolition of 370. Because then what happened is that facts on ground got changed.
But sir, in 2013, it was PLA who had come up to Y Junction. No. The Chumar and Y Junction.
Those are border guards. We may call them PLA, whatever you want to call them. They are border guards.
May I just come in? Maybe further. May I?
Sir. Yeah.
You see, the issue that is of relevance we are discussing is the patrolling. It is to be resumed by, I think, starting from tomorrow, if I am not wrong. Tomorrow, it is started today. We need to actually highlight the aspect whether the patrolling is, if it is pre-April 2020, to my understanding, what it means is the PLA patrols, they used to come right up to Butse prior to that. So is that the timeline which is correct for the nation to accept? Or we going for a benchmark? Because the moment you say it has to be restored status quo ante, means April 2020 and before, then does it mean that the Aksai chain, which is an integral part of India, have you started accepting that is no longer belongs to us? So by April 2020, their patrols were dominating right up to Butse. They have come to ITBP company at Butse.
Sir, before handing over to Brigadier Dhillon on this, I'd just like to add one thing, the legal point. You see, China's patrollings were always reactive, number one, and they were never supported officially, as in we never accepted them. Even at the height of defeat in 62 war, we never accepted the 59 claim line, which is the Butse alignment, roughly between Butse and Y Junction. This 59 claim line, for the benefit of our viewers, let me say, Chou En-lai, during the Chinese government before the 62 war, had proposed to the Indian government that these are the coordinates. They had given coordinates. In 1959, they had given this, that this is according to us the border. That was far
And
ahead of the
and they are
actual line then.
they are reflected in the Indian Parliament's the white paper given in '63. All the coordinates are there in that.
Yeah, so they had said that these are going to be our perception of the border, but at that moment the actual LAC, which General Sudhakar Jee was saying, was far to the east of this 59 so-called 1959 claim line. At that time, Indian troops were from Chipchap Valley downwards to Old Galwan Post, etc. The 59 claim line was far behind where the actual ground situation was. Now, after 62, when won on the ground in that sector and came ahead, they came and stopped at this 59 claim line. Both in Ladakh, in Galwan, in the the 1515A, 1717A, that entire Changchengmo and Kugrang Valley area, south to the Chushul area, Pangong So, Kailash heights, everywhere they stopped at their perception of 59 claim line. And then because of Indian stature or Nehru's stature or whatever, they went back 20 kilometers from there. Let us be very particular. They went back 20 kilometers from their perception of 59 claim line. Yes. Whereas in Arunachal, which was Nefa then, there they went back behind the status quo of 19th October 1962 before the war started. Wherever on 20th October 00 hours, Indian and Chinese troops were facing off in Arunachal, they went back to that position. And their retreat was far more because they had come almost up to Tejpur, as we know, Misamari. So from there, their retreat to beyond Namkachu and beyond Bumla was far more. Why this is important to understand is the legal position. If, as General Sudhakar Jee said, status quo ante, we are going to resume patrolling from tomorrow or day after. Who is that we? Viewers, this is important. Who is that we within inverted commas? Is it India alone? We India, or is it we means both sides? Before April 2020, India was patrolling till India's perceived line of legally claimed line of LAC in the areas which Brigadier Dhillon and General Sudhakar Jee have been referring to, Deung Bulge. There are 5 patrolling points from PP 10, 11, 11 alpha, 12, 13. These 5 patrolling points, they resemble a bulge. Like, when you eat too much, your stomach comes out, it bulges out. It's like a bulge. That is the Deung Bulge. And whenever China came into our side up to Butse, it was always, we claimed it was illegal. We pushed them back, like in 2013, we did something in Chumar, we occupied their R30, that high point of R30, and then we did a repose stay and they had to go back from Deung. But this time, is it built into the agreement that China can officially, not illegally, officially, formally come up to the 59 claim line, which means this is the point which General Sudhakar Jee had raised when I took over. Viewers, I am just clarifying what General Sudhakar Jee said. For the first time, are we going beyond the mandate of the Indian Parliament resolution of absolute sovereignty up to the Johnson line in Ladakh? Johnson line means including Aksai Chin, the line which you see on the map, Indian map, okay? On Ladakh and our perceived line in Arunachal, which is not McMahon line, which is beyond that, in at least Tawang area, which is watershed line. Thagla in front of Namkachu, north of Namkachu. Changla range, north of Sumdarumchu. Chima Karpola, northeast of Sumdarumchu. Here again, I will bring in Sudhakar Jee, sir, very soon, because he was the brigade commander of that area. A very, very disturbing thing has come in the news, which is about Yangtze. We have been talking of Ladakh, and we have been raising our concerns now that are we officially diluting our sovereignty on Deung Bulge? But in Arunachal, it becomes existential. General Sudhakar Jee, at that time, Brigadier Sudhakar Jee himself had supervised the construction of defenses in Yangtze, which is the high point, vantage point on the line of actual control. Let's say in that area, McMahon line is the line of actual control because there is not much dispute east of Bumla and east of Bumla. That's the highest knoll. From there, whoever occupies that, they can see the entire hinterland. All Indian artillery arrangements up to Tulungla, from Jang, all the tracks we have elaborately built in the last few decades with artillery, all comes under observation from Yangtze. And Chinese every year they try to come and force the issue there, and we force them back, beat them back. In 29 December 2022, they did the same thing. A Siklai regimental unit was there. They literally bait them back across, to that holy waterfalls, etc. Sir, General Sudhakar Jee, as the man who had shed, all those, volumes and liters of sweat there, how do you feel about this?
Sandeep, very touchy question. You are absolutely right. Soldier is also a human being. He has got emotions. And I'm sure Brigadier Dhillon will bear me out. He has scaled all the heights and length and breadth of almost all such kind of tough terrain. You are very right. I stand corrected. I totally agree with what Brigadier Dhillon is saying. When I made a point regarding time differential or mobilization differential, what I mean is that from the existing or whichever location they are pulling back to, Chinese I'm talking, or PLA, they will be able to respond to any kind of situation faster than the Indian troops. Why am I making this point? I'm making this point so that the decision makers, somebody at some point in time will watch our show like they did. Our previous shows have been seen by many relevant people in the authorities in the hierarchy. It will facilitate them to factor in this aspect that while they may pull back by 40 kilometers or 60 kilometers from the LAC, we don't have the luxury of doing the same thing for our case. Ours is a steep climb. The moment you pull back by 60 or 80 kilometers equivalent to their time, so distances should not be the factor, the mobilization differential should be equal. That is the point I am trying to make, and thanks to Brigadier Dhillon for having corrected me. Yes, he may be right with regard to the surveillance network, yes, because the mountain ranges are... Firstly, Eastern Ladakh stands out geographically when you compare this with the eastern sector, that is the Sikkim and Arunachal Pradesh. Eastern Ladakh does not have a contiguous mountain feature. We call it Karakoram range, but it doesn't. The Chinese are well ahead towards our side. It has got knolls, broken single-piece mountains. The dots have to be joined to perceive your imaginary LAC. So under those circumstances, what has happened is China by and by has built its surveillance communication centers. The surveillance communication centers are connected. They have got, earlier we used to think that the cameras are fraud cameras. They are non-effective cameras. But actually the camera is able to detect all the movements of our troops. Earlier we thought the drones were non-existent. The drones are actually being operationalized by China, which were not taken cognizance of by us. Their airspace management is better and effective, even though it is super high altitude as far as they are concerned. To a larger extent comparatively, I'm saying in terms of 62. So I'm not trying to contest what he has said. All I'm saying in response to your question is, in the year 2011, Sandeep, you are right. I was the brigade commander. We have taken extra effort to make a breast wall. Why was the breast wall made?
Where, sir? Where?
Yangtze. I'm talking about Yangtze. You see, Yangtze, there is one.
Yangtze local a little more for viewers, because this is to them just a word, just a name. Can you explain the terrain and the area? Okay,
the hub center is Tawang. Tawang is the communication center in mountains. That is where earlier they used to have 8,000 population. Now I am given to understand population has gone beyond 55,000. Tawang is turning out to be a huge tourist center. From Tawang, you have an access going through Lumla towards Jimitang side and to Khinjimane, through which His Holiness Dalai Lama had come into India way back in 1959. You have another access going through Maratha Hill to Y Junction, and from Y Junction one goes to Madhuri Lake, they call it, and thereafter it goes to
It's
the
a Sangatsar Lake. Sangatsar Lake, I think they call it.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
name is-
Shangatsar, the forces call it by Madhuri Lake. That is where there was a movie shot, and from there is a waterfall at Jung. From Jung, she fell into the waterfall and came out at Madhuri Lake. So the lake's name had changed to Madhuri Lake. Anyway, that is in the lighter side. Another road access takes off from Y Junction, goes down to Bumla. Also, very interestingly, one must understand that while you are going towards Bumla, short of the Y junction, there is another diversion which takes you through a place called Subhashat. And from Subhashat, it takes you up to Damteng and Y junction. Because ahead of it towards the north is a very prominent pass. Most of our viewers must have heard about, called it Tulungla. Tulungla is the pass.
This was far right. This was the far right of the
Far right. Far right. And south of Tulungla Pass, you have Mago, Chuna, all these places. To the east of it, there is a segment of the hill feature. It is filled with a very unique variety of kind of a herb, which is used as an aphrodisiac. Chinese, whenever they come for two things. One is the grazing ground. They push in the yaks, and in order to drive the yaks back, they put the PLA or the border guards in the garb of taking the yaks back. They come inside, they carry out harvesting of this particular herb. Okay, so these things are...
This was in your AOR. All these areas were in your AOR.
In my AOR. Now, we stopped. We said this is a technique, methodology which is being adopted by Chinese in the garb of sending the yaks inside for grazing, claiming to be their grazing ground. The PLAs had started coming in, and thereby gradually by incremental salami slicing, the patrols also started coming in. So we decided that the best way to stop these people surprising us from behind, our deployment is well ahead. So you suddenly find people coming in large number, torches blinking left, right and center at, if not middle of the night, early morning. They have been coming from behind. So what I'm saying is, if the breast wall is to be undone, as per the current understanding.
Can you please set the location of the breast wall? Please explain that, because Yangtze people need to know where exactly, between Bumla and Tulungla, where is Yangtze?
Okay. So now Subhashat is a place where you have some elements of our army. Behind Subhashat, there is another axis, gentlemen. From Tawang, it goes to milestone 40, kilometer stone 40. From kilometer stone 40, there is an axis which connects, goes parallel. Our deployment has become very formidable. China is really worried. So it will be incorrect on my part to give out everything on a platter in this platform. These are all top secret deployments. So there is an axis going up, keeping Mago, Chona to the right hand side, to the east of us, east of the road, and it goes up right up to the south of Tulungla. Now, when you talk about Yangtze, Yangtze is actually to the east of to the west of this particular divide. And Yangtze, there is a base. From the base, you got to climb up. As you are climbing up, it's a distance of almost about 1.8 to 3 kilometers distance, but the climb is very steep. The deployment areas are limited. At best, maximum in the one deployment point, you can have 6 to 10 people, not more than that.
That is the base start, the climbing point. Which point is that?
Yeah, the climbing point is Yangtze. At the base of Yangtze, there is a Y junction where the base is located. It is almost about 11 kilometers from, there is a Shankar OP. Shankar OP is the tip of Yangtze. That OP is on a stone. It's on a ledge, 6 feet by 8 feet, where we used to have one sentry earlier. Now, unofficially, I've been told it has been developed to accommodate anything up to 10 people there. And along with that, we have also developed our very limited deployment points, and we have dug in, and the areas have increased to have large concentration of troops for the sake of security.
Sir, is it true that from the Shankar OP point, which is at the peak of Yangtze, there is a track which goes to a place called Thangla. Thangla, after Sumdaronchu incident, we had pushed forward our defense up to Thangla ahead, north of Yangtze.
Well, Sandeep, you seem to be knowing a lot more than the military men. It will be incorrect on my part to comment on all this. There are certain things which have to be done to safeguard the national security and the national interest. I would say you are not entirely wrong. You, to large an extent, you are indicating certain things which has enabled India to occupy such formidable defenses, which gives us multiple directional view, observation. That observation is one, sitting here at Yangtze, you can look across what is not visible from Bumla. Between Bumla to Yangtze, it's a crow-fly distance of 35 odd kilometers, maybe a little lesser. But some dead grounds are there opposite Bumla, which the PLA can take advantage of and get closer to the IB or the LAC without Indian troops getting to know. There is a hill called a Helmet Hill. So behind the Helmet Hill, they have a military base. Earlier, they used to have one company.
That is in Sona. That is in Sona County, sir. The other side of Bumla.
Sona is 28 kilometers away from Bumla. There is a name of a place I am forgetting, Kungdi Hill. It is north of Kungdi Hill. There is a military base. Earlier, it used to be one helicopter landing ground. Now they have got an ALG. Their strength has increased. It's about 3.5 to 6 kilometers away from Bumla. It's in a dead ground. It's a bowl. I'm forgetting the name of the. And further, there is a track connecting from here going opposite Damteng. Damteng you would have heard of. There is a waterfall. The waterfall, it falls in 180 waterfalls. It's a place of worship. So beyond that is the place called as Yangtze. So this is what the geography is all about. But by sitting at Yangtze, you are not only able to look towards the east, to the north, but also the western portion. It gives you an angular view of all movements of China.
China is a huge advantage for us. Huge advantage for us.
It's a huge advantage. What you cannot observe from aerial platform, you actually get to see everything. And incidentally,
as the brigade commander, how does it feel now that the Chinese may officially come there without resistance?
Obviously, a brigade commander should. I mean, it is not. I don't think it's worth calling himself as a brigade commander if China. I mean, you are giving everything on a platter. So.
Then what was it all about? Then your tenure and all the people after you, before you, even DG Infantry, ex-DG Infantry, General Sanjay Kulkarni, even he was a brigade commander there once before you. I mean, then what is it all about? What have you done?
The fact of the matter remains that we have been able to, firstly, the border with China is neither delineated nor demarcated. It is very important and relevant to give a point up to which the troops on the ground have to go, dominate up to, ensure that there is no enemy present in that sector and come back and report. Which is that point the Jawan has to go? That is a very difficult part. And whether it is General Kulkarni or me, during our time, we could, with the help of Military Operation Directorate, we could identify a kind of a demarcation to facilitate or ensure operational efficiency.